For over 40 years, a heavy wooden chest traveled in the total secrecy. It went from the private upstairs quarters of Graceland to guarded estates in California. Lisa Marie Presley kept it hidden directly beneath her bed frame. Her security teams had strict orders never to touch it. Powerful husbands were kept entirely in the dark. It was her most terrifyingly guarded secret. But following her sudden passing, her daughter Riley finally turned the small key. What lies waiting inside changes the entire history of the Presley bloodline. Why did Lisa Marie guard these items with her life? The truth has finally breached the mansion walls. The heavy walnut box. The temperature inside the upstairs master bedroom at Graceland always felt like an icebox. On August 16, 1977, that room became a crime scene. A 9-year-old Lisa Marie Presley walked past the frantic paramedics and the weeping bodyguards. She did not look at the bathroom door. Instead, her eyes locked onto a small, heavy walnut chest sitting near the edge of her father's nightstand. It was a brass-bound box Elvis used for his most private documents. Amidst the screams echoing down the hallway, the little girl reached out and grabbed it. She pulled the box down and slid it under her own bed before the state investigators could lock down the second floor. That single desperate act began a 46-year obsession. The second floor of Graceland was closed to the public almost immediately after the funeral. Fans walked through the trophy rooms downstairs, completely unaware of what had vanished from the living quarters above. Lisa Marie's mother, Priscilla, began managing the chaotic estate. She cataloged the cars, the stage capes, and the master tapes. Yet, nobody noticed the missing walnut box. Lisa Marie kept it pushed flat against the carpet in her bedroom, right beneath the center springs of her mattress. A family maid named Betty almost exposed the secret just 3 months later. Betty was vacuuming the thick shag carpet in Lisa Marie's room when the machine hit a heavy obstruction. She knelt and reached underneath the frame. Her fingers brushed against the cold brass corners of the chest. Before she could pull it into the light, Lisa Marie entered the room. The 9-year-old did not cry or throw a tantrum. She walked over, looked the grown woman dead in the eye, and told her that if she ever touched that box again, she would be fired by nightfall. Betty left the room trembling. What could a 9-year-old child possibly need to hide from her own family? The staff assumed it was a collection of childhood diaries or perhaps gold jewelry left behind by her father. But the reality was far more heavy. Lisa Marie knew that her father's public image was a carefully constructed illusion. She had seen the pill bottles, the late-night panic attacks, and the frantic notes he scribbled on hotel stationery. The box did not contain treasure. It contained the raw, unedited truth of a man dying in plain sight. The box traveled with her when Priscilla moved the family to Los Angeles. It was never placed in a moving truck with the rest of their household belongings. Lisa Marie carried it on her lap in the back seat of their car. By the time she turned 18, the box had its own permanent security protocol. When she rented hotel rooms or moved into new apartments, she refused to let bellhops handle her personal suitcase. That suitcase stayed attached to her wrist until she could slide the walnut chest under her new bed. Her first husband, Danny Keough, noticed the habit within weeks of their wedding. He would hear a distinct, heavy thud against the floorboards every time they changed the bed sheets. One afternoon, while Lisa Marie was out at a recording studio, Danny decided to investigate. He got down on his hands and knees. He saw the dark wood and the tarnished brass lock. But as he reached for it, he noticed a tiny, clear piece of tape stretched across the keyhole. It was a classic counterintelligence trick. Lisa Marie was booby-trapping her own bedroom. Danny pulled his hand back, realizing that crossing that line might end his marriage. The box became her anchor as the world around her grew increasingly unstable. She was the sole heir to an empire worth millions, surrounded by lawyers, managers, and sycophants who wanted a piece of the Presley legacy. The box under her bed was the only thing the corporate vultures could not touch, but a massive problem was brewing. The lock on the box was old, and the metal was beginning to degrade. Lisa Marie refused to take it to a professional locksmith. She feared what they would see if the lid popped open. Instead, she began carrying the key on a thick gold chain around her neck, hidden beneath her clothes. She grew paranoid that people were tracking her movements specifically to get to the chest. Was she losing her mind, or were the vultures actually circling her bedroom? The pressure intensified when she entered the high-stakes world of international pop royalty. Her next relationship would put her secret under a global microscope. By the early 1990s, she was no longer just Elvis's daughter. She was about to become the wife of the most famous man on Earth, Michael Jackson. And Michael had his own obsession with the upstairs secrets of Graceland. When they moved into their first shared home, the walnut box went under the bed once again. But Michael's security team was legendary for their invasive surveillance. Would the box survive the most scrutinized marriage in Hollywood history? Guarding the vault through two empires. The heavy brass doors of Neverland Valley Ranch swung shut, cutting off the California sun. It was 1994. Lisa Marie Presley stepped into Michael Jackson's private bedroom suite, followed by two bodyguards carrying her personal luggage. Michael's head of security, a former state investigator, reached down to pick up her smaller leather-bound travel case. Lisa Marie slapped his hand away. The room was filled with an uncomfortable silence. Michael watched from the doorway, his eyes fixed on the small suitcase. Inside that case, wrapped in black silk, was the walnut box. Lisa Marie slid it beneath the massive gold-leafed bed frame before she even unpacked her clothes. Living inside Michael Jackson's inner circle meant living under constant surveillance. Security cameras monitored the hallways, and staff members signed ironclad non-disclosure agreements. Michael was deeply fascinated by Elvis. He wanted to know the king's secrets, his eccentricities, and his private medical struggles. He constantly questioned Lisa Marie about her father's final days. One evening, Michael casually asked if she had kept anything from the upstairs rooms at Graceland. Lisa Marie shifted her gaze to the floorboards and told him she left it all behind. It was a calculated lie. She kept the box rigged with her signature counterintelligence tricks. Every morning, she placed a microscopic strand of hair over the brass latch. During their 1995 European tour, they stayed in the royal suite of a luxury hotel in Paris. Lisa Marie returned from a brief lunch to find her bedroom door unlocked. She rushed to the bed and knelt. The hair was gone. The box had been moved exactly 2 inches to the left. Someone had tried to pick the lock, leaving faint scratch marks on the aged brass. Lisa Marie did not call hotel management. She went straight to Michael. She demanded to know which member of his personal staff had entered her room. Michael tried to laugh it off, calling it a mistake by the housekeeping crew. Lisa Marie knew better. Housekeepers did not use precision tension tools on vintage locks. That very night, she packed her bags and ordered a private plane back to Los Angeles. The marriage was already fracturing, but the violation of her father's chest was the absolute breaking point. The tour continued without her, and the public began reading headlines about an impending divorce. Her next high-profile relationship brought an entirely different kind of chaos. In 2002, she met Nicolas Cage at a Hollywood party. Nicolas was not just a fan of Elvis, he was a fanatical collector. He owned rare movie posters, original vinyl pressings, and even one of Elvis's personal jumpsuits. When they married in August of that year, Nicolas treated Lisa Marie like the ultimate piece of his collection. He wanted to share everything, including her deepest family history. But Lisa Marie kept the walnut box barricaded from him. During a massive argument at their home in Malibu, Nicolas demanded to know why she kept a locked chest under her side of the mattress. He accused her of keeping love letters from her ex-husband, Danny Keough. The shouting match spilled out onto the pool deck. In a fit of rage, Nicolas took his multi-million-dollar wedding ring and threw it straight into the ocean. The marriage lasted exactly 108 days. Why did she protect the box from the men she supposedly loved? Danny, Michael, and Nicolas all shared one fatal flaw in her eyes. They wanted a piece of the myth. They wanted to touch the ghost of Elvis Presley. The men in her life view her as a bridge to rock and roll royalty. Lisa Marie used the box as a shield to separate her real self from the public commodity she inherited. If she allowed any of them to see what was inside, she would lose her only remaining connection to her father as a real human being. The constant moving took a massive toll on the wooden chest. By 2003, the walnut wood was splintering at the base from being dragged across so many different hotel floors and bedroom carpets. Her private security chief begged her to let him place the items into a high-security vault at a bank in Beverly Hills. He argued that if a fire broke out, 4 decades of history would turn to ash in minutes. Lisa Marie flatly refused. She told him that vaults could be opened by court orders, subpoenas, and greedy estate lawyers. Under her bed, She had absolute control. But her absolute control was about to face its greatest threat. As she entered her late 30s, her personal life began to spiral. Her finances were collapsing due to terrible investments and predatory business managers. The multi-million-dollar empire her mother built was rapidly draining away. Soon the wolves would not just be looking for her father's secrets. They would be coming for her money, her property, and everything she owned. The small box under her bed was about to become the center of a high-stakes financial war, the 9-figure fire sale. A glossy black fountain pen clattered against a massive mahogany conference table in downtown Los Angeles. It was December 2004. Lisa Marie Presley sat opposite a phalanx of corporate attorneys and business managers who were pressuring her to sign a single piece of paper. The document outlined the sale of 85% of the assets of Elvis Presley Enterprises. Her business manager, a man named Barry Siegel, pushed the paperwork closer to her. He told her she had no choice. The estate was facing over $25 million in debts, and her personal cash reserves were dangerously low. With one stroke of her pen, she would receive more than $100 million, but she would lose control over her father's name, image, and likeness. The corporate executives from CKX Inc., the entertainment company buying the rights, believed they had mapped out every single asset of the Presley legacy. They had audited the master recordings, the film contracts, and the licensing deals for t-shirts and coffee mugs. But during the final hours of the negotiation, one of the primary buyers noticed a glaring omission in the inventory list. He stood up, placed his palms on the table, and asked Lisa Marie about the missing personal archives from the second floor of Graceland. Specifically, they wanted the private medical journals, the personal diaries, and the legal correspondence Elvis kept during his final years. They knew these items held massive commercial value for future documentaries and books. Lisa Marie did not flinch. She locked eyes with the executive, stood up from her leather chair, and told him that those items were completely off the market. The negotiation ground to a halt for 45 minutes. Her advisors whispered in her ear, reminding her of the impending bankruptcy. The buyers threatened to walk away from the 9-figure deal entirely if she held back family secrets. But Lisa Marie refused to budge. She knew exactly where those documents were. They were not sitting in a vault at Graceland. They were resting inside the walnut chest under her bed at that very moment. She told the room that if they pushed the issue, she would walk out and let the estate go under. The buyers blinked first, removing the clause from the final contract. The sale went through, and the public saw headlines celebrating her massive financial rescue. But the relief was incredibly short-lived. Over the next decade, her financial situation degenerated into an absolute nightmare. By 2018, she discovered that the massive fortune from the 2004 sale had been completely mismanaged and depleted. Her bank accounts held less than $20,000 in cash, and she was facing a multi-million-dollar tax debt. She filed a massive lawsuit against Barry Siegel, accusing him of reckless financial negligence. During the bitter legal proceedings, her finances became public record. Creditors were dissecting her life, line by line, looking for anything they could seize and liquidate to satisfy her debts. Her house in Calabasas was placed under immense financial scrutiny. Forensic accountants began tracking her personal spending, demanding receipts for everything down to her monthly grocery bills. A rumor began circulating among the legal teams that Lisa Marie possessed a highly valuable, uncatalogued collection of Elvis artifacts hidden inside her home. One afternoon, a court-appointed financial evaluator arrived at her residence for a mandatory asset assessment. He walked through the house with a clipboard, noting the value of her furniture, her clothing, and her personal effects. When he entered her master bedroom, Lisa Marie blocked the path to her bed. She stood directly over the mattress, her arms crossed, her knuckles white. The evaluator asked if there were any hidden assets or jewelry stored in the room that had not been declared in the court filings. Lisa Marie told him there was absolutely nothing of value in the room. Her security guard stood right behind her, his hand resting near his belt. The evaluator felt the sudden shift in the room's energy, checked a box on his clipboard, and quickly moved to the kitchen. Why didn't she just open the box and sell its contents to solve her financial problems? A single authentic unpublished diary entry or handwritten letter from Elvis could have fetched hundreds of thousands of dollars at an auction house like Sotheby's. The entire box could have wiped out her tax debt in a single afternoon. But to Lisa Marie, selling those items was a form of spiritual suicide. The money would go to the tax collectors and the lawyers, but her father's final, desperate thoughts would become public entertainment. She chose to endure the public humiliation of financial ruin rather than profit from the private agony of her father. She survived the financial audit, but the stress was breaking her physical health. She began relying heavily on prescription painkillers to cope with severe back pain and the immense emotional weight of the ongoing lawsuits. The cycle of dependency that had destroyed her father was quietly taking hold of her own life. As the world closed in on her, she pulled the walnut chest even deeper under the bed frame. It was no longer just a collection of historical papers. It was her final, absolute sanctuary. But an incoming tragedy would soon render all of her financial struggles entirely meaningless. The weight of the bloodline. A sharp shard of bright California sunlight pierced through the heavy drapes of a rented home in Calabasas. It was July 12th, 2020. Lisa Marie Presley sat frozen on the edge of her mattress, staring blankly at a shattered glass photo frame on the hardwood floor. Down the hallway, the echoes of a sudden gunshot had already faded into a terrifying, heavy silence. Her 27-year-old son, Benjamin Keogh, was gone. The paramedics were already screaming up the driveway with their sirens wailing, but Lisa Marie did not move toward the bedroom door. Instead, she reached deep beneath her bed frame, her fingers tracking the rough grain of the old walnut box until she found the cold metal latch. In the absolute darkest moment of her life, she dragged the chest into her lap and wept over the tarnished brass corners. Benjamin's sudden passing did not just break her heart. It activated the exact multi-generational curse she had spent her entire life trying to outrun. He looked exactly like Elvis, possessing the same heavy lids, the same curling lip, and the same reclusive nature. For years, the public wondered why Benjamin stayed so far away from the Hollywood spotlight despite his immense musical talent. The answer was trapped inside his mother's bedroom. Lisa Marie had watched her son struggle with the same intense genetic depression and addiction patterns that had ended her father's life at 36. She knew the boy was carrying a weight too heavy for any grandchild of the king to bear. Following the funeral at Graceland, where Benjamin was laid to rest in the meditation garden, Lisa Marie completely withdrew from the world. She locked herself inside her house for months, refusing interviews, television appearances, and family gatherings. Her private security team noticed a terrifying change in her daily routine. She spent hours sitting cross-legged on the floor, with the walnut box completely wide open. It was the first time in over 40 years that she kept the lid unsealed for days at a time. She was laying out old medical records, autopsy findings, and private journals onto her bedsheets, comparing them to her son's journals. What was she looking for among those old, yellowing papers? She was looking for a medical explanation to ease her maternal guilt. For decades, the mainstream media claimed Elvis died simply from lifestyle excesses and poor personal choices. But the private autopsy findings and personal physician notes inside the walnut box told a vastly different story. They detailed a man suffering from severe genetic cellular defects, chronic bowel issues, and immune deficiencies. Lisa Marie realized that her father's body was already failing from birth due to centuries of tight-knit family lineages in the Deep South. She saw the same physical vulnerabilities showing up in her son, Benjamin, and ultimately in her own failing health. Her eldest daughter, Riley Keogh, became deeply concerned about her mother's complete isolation. One evening in late 2021, Riley entered the master bedroom to bring her mother a tray of food. She found Lisa Marie holding a small, faded yellow prescription slip from 1977. It was signed by George Nicopolis, Elvis's infamous personal doctor. Lisa Marie looked up at her daughter, her face pale, and whispered that the bloodline was heavy and the clock was ticking. Riley tried to gently take the paper from her hand to calm her down, but Lisa Marie snapped the chest shut, slid the lock into place, and ordered her daughter out of the room. The immense grief was physically altering Lisa Marie's body. Her heart structure was weakening under the weight of constant sorrow and a mounting dependency on heavy prescription painkillers. She eventually moved to a new house in the Los Angeles area to escape the memories of the Calabasas home, but she no longer had the physical strength to carry the walnut box herself. She forced her most trusted long-term bodyguard to transport it in a heavy canvas duffel bag, stitched directly to his wrist. he placed it under her new bed, directly beneath her pillow line, where she could hear the wood creak whenever she shifted at night. By the time 2022 arrived, her close friends noticed she was talking about Elvis not as a historical figure or a lost memory, but as someone she would see very soon. She attended the Golden Globe Awards in January 2023 to support the biographical movie about her father. On the red carpet, she had to hold on to her friend Jerry Schilling's arm just to keep her balance. Her speech was slow, her eyes heavy. The public assumed she was just exhausted from the grueling press tour, but her family knew her heart was simply giving out. 2 days later, on January 12, 2023, her housekeeper found her completely unresponsive in her bedroom. Paramedics rushed her to the hospital, where she suffered a final, fatal cardiac arrest. She was 55 years old. The sole heir to the king of rock and roll was gone, leaving behind an estate tangled in fresh legal battles between Priscilla and Riley. But as her body was taken from the house, the master bedroom sat empty. Beneath the frame of her mattress, the walnut box remained, its brass lock unturned, waiting for the one person who had the legal and emotional right to break the seal. The lock is broken. A heavy metal key scraped against the inside of a tarnished brass lock. It was late 2023. Riley Keough sat alone on the floor of her mother's empty bedroom, surrounded by cardboard moving boxes. After months of bitter legal battles with her grandmother, Priscilla Presley, a judge had finally named Riley the sole trustee of Lisa Marie's estate. That decision gave her legal ownership of Graceland, the master tapes, and every private possession her mother left behind. Riley reached deep into a canvas duffel bag and pulled out the walnut chest. She turned the key, lifted the heavy wooden lid, and broke a seal that had remained intact for over 4 decades. The interior of the box smelled strongly of old cedar, vanilla, and decaying paper. Resting right on top was a stack of loose, unlined hotel stationery from the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. The handwriting was unmistakable. It belonged to Elvis Presley, written in thick blue ink during his final touring months in 1977. These were not love letters or creative song ideas. They were raw, frantic journal entries where Elvis detailed his terrifying physical deterioration. He wrote about his inability to sleep, his blinding headaches, and the immense pressure of performing while his body was actively failing him. Riley picked up the papers, her hands trembling as she read her grandfather's final, private thoughts. For years, the public believed Elvis was detached from reality during his final days, completely unaware of his downward spiral. But these notes proved the exact opposite. Elvis was hyper-aware of his situation. In one striking note dated June 1977, he explicitly stated that he knew his heart was giving out. He wrote that he felt trapped by his own massive entourage, his mounting bills, and his predatory manager, Colonel Tom Parker. He confessed that his biggest fear was leaving his 9-year-old daughter alone in a world full of corporate vultures. Beneath the handwritten notes lay a thick manila folder stamped with the emblem of the Baptist Memorial Hospital in Memphis. This folder contained the true medical history that the Presley estate had spent decades hiding from the global public. It included detailed genetic blood panels, internal organ scans, and private consult reports from specialized doctors in New York and London. The documents officially confirmed that Elvis suffered from an alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. This rare genetic mutation causes severe liver and lung damage, chronic digestive failure, and extreme metabolic disorders. This medical discovery completely rewrites the historical narrative surrounding the king of rock and roll. The world had spent 46 years labeling Elvis as a victim of simple self-destruction and lifestyle overindulgence. But the records in the walnut box proved that his body was already ticking down toward an early grave from the day he was born. The severe colon issues, the massive heart enlargement, and the immune failures were all hardwired into his DNA. Lisa Marie kept these records hidden under her bed because she wanted to protect her father from a public that preferred a scandalous headline over a tragic genetic reality. But as Riley dug deeper into the bottom of the chest, she found something that explained her mother's entire life. Hidden beneath the medical files was a small velvet jewelry pouch. Inside it was a cheap plastic pink diary with a broken toy lock. It belonged to Lisa Marie when she was 9 years old. Riley flipped open the brittle pages to find an entry dated August 17, 1977, the day after Elvis died. The little girl had written a solemn vow to her father. She promised him that she would guard his true memory with her life, that she would never let the corporations buy his soul, and that she would keep his secrets safe until they were together again. This tiny childhood diary solved the ultimate mystery of Lisa Marie's turbulent life. It explained why she fought so fiercely against the corporate buyers during the 2004 estate sale. It explained why she endured the public humiliation of bankruptcy rather than selling her father's private journals to the highest bidder. She was not being reckless or paranoid. She was simply honoring a blood oath she made to her dead father in her childhood bedroom at Graceland. She carried that weight through 4 failed marriages, financial ruin, and the tragic loss of her own son. Riley slowly placed the documents back into the walnut chest and lowered the heavy lid. She realized that this box was never meant to be a weapon against her family, nor was it meant to be a museum exhibit for curious fans. It was a time capsule of pure, unadulterated grief. It was the only place where Lisa Marie could encounter her father as a real, suffering human being instead of a global commodity. Riley made a definitive decision regarding the contents of the chest. She would not publish the medical records, and she would not auction off the final letters. The secrets that traveled under mattresses for 46 years would finally be laid to rest. Lisa Marie Presley spent her entire adult life guarding the fragile humanity of her father from a world that wanted to consume it. By keeping the walnut box safely hidden beneath her bed, she ensured that the raw truth of Elvis Presley remained unbroken by corporate greed. Now, that sacred trust belongs to her daughter, Riley Keough, who is officially keeping the chest locked away from public eyes at Graceland. Thank you for diving deep into this royal history with us today. If you want to uncover more hidden stories behind the British royals and global pop empires, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Don't forget to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments below. We will see you in the next deep dive.